Cool. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Identity Summit. We're going to be talking about all things identity and civil resistance. And here we have like a great panel to kick this off. We're going to be talking about kind of foundational stuff to start off the day with really awesome guests today here. The title of this panel is Why Civil Resistance Even Matters. We have Sylvia, Billy, and Julian. I will let you guys take about 20 seconds each to quickly introduce yourself and probably share your project.
Yeah, then I'll go the first since I have the mic. So my name is Sylvia. Nice meeting you all. Have a good morning here. I'm working at PolygonID since a year and a half. And as you probably already know, we are developing a sensor and identity solution. The reason why I'm here now, right? Thank you. And I'll pass it on.
Hello, everyone. I'm Billy. I've been in crypto for a while, done a bunch of things over that time. I'm an advisor to Consensys, and I started something called Intuition, which is like a game theoretic general purpose oracle type thing where we are building decision-making technology. And I will pass it off to Julian.
Yeah, hi, I'm Julian. Been doing identity and KYC for Web3 since 2017. As you can imagine, doing KYC always the most popular kit at a crypto party. We are launching the IDOS, which is a decentralized data storage for identity data, and I'm super curious to connect with you guys and yeah, launch a demo. Things like that.
Cool. We can keep that. Probably. Okay. So we'll start off with a question. Maybe Sylvia, you can start this off. Why does civil resistance even matter, right? And if you could talk to us about what use cases kind of get unlocked if we solve this problem. Like if we have a solution, magical solution to civil resistance, like what are the use cases that will really get unlocked today?
Yeah, so civil resistance, I would say this is important mainly in the digital space, right? So if you are interacting digitally with someone in the internet, you don't know, right, who is the other person on the other side. So maybe the same person is having multiple accounts and then trying to go through that interaction with you, showing like different faces, right? Personally and physically, this is totally impossible. So that's what we are trying to resolve now in the digital space with what we call avoiding civil attacks, which is like having an interaction with either a bot or a person that is having a lot of different accounts. Why this happens? Because there are occasions like when you are voting, being in a DAO, or could be even in elections that in future will happen digitally. You would like to ensure that that person is just voting once and that is actually a human being and that the person is within the census, right? That has the right to vote. That is one case, but you have multiple other cases like whenever there is an airdrop or something similar, when you are sharing rewards, then you would like to share them equally, right? Or at least in a way that is compensating the users that really you want to compensate and only once. That also could be interesting when you are getting or building reputation. So whenever someone is opining about something, you want to ensure that this opinion, this review is unique. So if I just have a DApp, I don't want people voting multiple times about how good that DApp is, because then that reputation that the app is getting maybe is fake. It's not valid any longer. It's not giving a true value. This is my 5 cents about what I believe civil resistance is impossible, and I would summarize it's about having the insurance that there's a unique human being interacting with you digitally. That's it. Maybe you want to add something to it?
Sure. I think that was pretty comprehensive, so I don't have too much to add, but I'd box just very shooting from the hip here. Some important things being voting, incentives, consensus, and psyops. I think you touched on a bunch of those, but one really interesting thing is the psyop piece, wherein I think there's a lot of people in crypto who have many different personas that kind of play off of one another, and you even have like you have like ecosystems wherein the same team is creating new teams with different personas and like talking amongst each other. And so it's really hard to discern what a unique agent in the system is. And I think like it's a really important problem to solve. Like voting, obvious. Incentives in the form of airdrops, very obvious. PsyOps, like, is that? It's an interesting thing. I don't know if we need to necessarily solve it, but it would be nice to know if two things are the same agent behind the scenes. And then consensus, wherein the reason, like one of the main reasons we have proof of work and proof of stake and things like that is Sybil resistance. Like if you could just have certainty that each agent running each node was a unique person, then you wouldn't really need these other like economic factors to like provide the same security guarantees. You could just have like one node, one person, and you'd be kind of good to go and be entirely democratic. But unfortunately, we can't know that, so we need more advanced mechanisms on top to be able to arrive at decentralized distributed consensus.
Making it hard to add on top of it, being the last one in the group. And I wouldn't say this is the most important one, especially not for the initial step. But if we have two decentralized civil resistance mechanisms, I think it could be really good for scaling because you can implement mechanisms like recovery that normal people would want to have if they would want to come into easy to use systems like you're trying to build. So if you want to cross the chasm in terms of user adoption, I think that this is a very important and missing infrastructure piece to actually enable us to scale.
So I'm going to pick the next question based on something that Billy double clicked on is around PsyOps. So I want to ask the question, why are bots even considered bad, right? Like and I ask this from two perspectives. The first is if there are bots that are actually interacting with dApps and they're paying gas fees for it, like do we really care? That's one part of the question. And the second part of the question is as and when bots get more and more sophisticated with LLMs being more accessible to malicious actors, what like how does our perspective about bots change? Like how are we thinking about bots and why are they actually bad, both in the near term as well as in the longer term? Kind of a longish question.
Surely. I think bots can be both good and bad. And to your point, like if they're paying gas fees, I'm very happy to have a bunch of bots. Like that's great. I think it gets bad when you distribute asymmetric rewards to those agents based on like proportional to the amount of value that they've expended. So let's say a bot spends $5 performing actions on your network, and then you airdrop them $50,000 worth of tokens. Like that's very disproportionate. And I think for all of the I don't want to get controversial, but like for whatever friend tech is, the one thing that they did right, I think, was kind of flatten that out to the point where the amount of points that people are getting is more proportionate to the amount of value that they're spending in the system. So it's kind of like a token sale instead of an airdrop, wherein people are paying exorbitant fees to get these points in hopes of maybe in the future receiving tokens. So I think like in that sense, it's bad if you like give them too much money. It's also bad for business intelligence. So I think you see a lot of teams thinking that they have a ton of traction when most of the traction is just a couple guys with like 10,000 bots, and then they change their business strategy because they have this like huge sense of optimism that they have tons of users, but it's just bots trying to airdrop farm. And so I think that's really scary. And then yeah, just the problem of voting, and there's a lot of reasons, but I guess those are two main ones that I wanted to mention.
Well, I just remember one anecdote. I was talking to the co-founder of Dune, and he was just having a mild meltdown on Twitter recently because bots of like trying to do analytics with you because they're assuming that there will be an airdrop, right? And this is just driving their cost up dramatically. And he's just repeatedly said that they will not have a token. I mean, that's kind of countering what I wanted to say, which is more to the extent of I don't think that they are bad bots, but they are just bad systems, right? If the systems are bad and the incentive motivation is bad, then well, people will write bots that exploit that. So you should build better systems, I guess. Which, well, we're sitting on a Sybil resistance panel, so maybe that could be a solution.
I
So, would also like you guys to touch a little bit upon when bots get even more sophisticated with LLMs and stuff like that. We've already beginning to see people using that to bypass a lot of human checks. So, do you have any opinions? Yeah.
Well, I believe the main challenge we will have is with the development of AI technology. This is going to become even harder, right? To identify how to stop and how to make Sybil resistance systems. So in that sense is where we really need to become much more, I wouldn't say clever, which at the same time that the AI technology is evolving, then we need to evolve in other technologies to be able to combat or, yeah, to become still resistant. I think it's a challenge in general, but we will get there. I think we have like systems with Fractal or now IDOS, right, that are helping us to get there, trying to get like proof of uniqueness that help us to make the step into having systems that are Sybil resistant. Yeah.
Oh man, you just got my head spinning. So I mean, there's gonna come a point where the bots or the AI are so sophisticated that they're kind of like maybe their opinion is equally or more valuable than the opinion of humans. And so maybe there's a point in time in which we kind of like need to delineate and say, okay, if the bot is over this threshold of sophistication, then we need to treat it as a sovereign, unique agent in the system. Or if it's like sufficiently sovereign in and of itself, then maybe Sybil is we have to change the definition and we have to go kind of like the WorldCoin route of saying, okay, this is like proof of unique human as opposed to just like general Sybil resistance. So then we can delineate human versus AI. But I don't know, like maybe I've just been thinking about it wrong, and it's just like the AI are like they will be sovereign agents in the system, and so maybe that's an okay thing.
Yeah, if you're looking at it from a utility perspective, right? Like, what utility does it bring me as a system? You can get sovereign agents that are as helpful as humans, right? So should you treat them as humans? And in some or maybe most cases, probably yes. But then there is value in itself in treating a human like a human and not treating a bot like a human when it comes to, for example, voting. And there is just general utility in, as a society, enabling that and basically going from feudalism, one token, one vote, to one person, one vote. And this is just one example, where it's not about the utility of the participant of the network. But we're far away from even having built those systems in the first place, right?
In my view, I somehow agree with you, Billy, with what you said, but I believe it's good to know whether it's an actual bot. So it's AI created intelligence, so to say, right? And to be able to say, okay, it brings value, but just keep in mind that this is not human source of value, right? And then you decide whether you want to accept that, use that, whatsoever. So at least having the possibility to identify what is the source of whatever you are interacting with, right? And then at least have the stamp, well, this is AI created, being art, being whatsoever, I think. But if it's valuable to someone, then why not? Yeah.
Got it. I think hot takes there. Um, the next question, probably I'll start with you on this one, is there seem to be like three phrases that we use kind of in the periphery of each other, which is Sybil resistance, identity, and KYC. Right. So, where do you draw the lines for each of these, and what are the product implications for all of these three phrases?
I see I get the easy questions today. Um, um, Look, I mean, when I say I'm an identity, people are like, cool, so avatars, right? And I'm like, no, how would you even? But then again, it's true that can be identity. Um, and I think this KYC is the easiest, at least for me. It's like meeting an authorities, um, like just checking boxes, right? And that can be as dumb as, for example, if you want to identify where someone lives, you upload a PDF. Is that easy to port? Well, yes. Would there be better methods that would be easier for the user? Also, yes. Do they want it exactly that bad way? Also, yes. So that's just what we have to do, I guess. Sybil resistance is a lot more interesting because no one tells you how to do it, but it's also a lot harder, I would say. So the main point that I see is that there is no industry standard for a way how to identify a human. So for example, I don't know, like you take a hash of the eye color and then like the hair color and you mix that up and then you get like 6 numbers that you can compare. Well, that sounds weird, and it is also not something that we do. So right now we have those proprietary systems that always do it the same way. So in those closed proprietary ecosystem fences, you can have civil resistance and uniqueness. But once you compare it to a different vendor, again, you have no clue if that person has already been identified. So I see that as one of the biggest, uh, yeah, challenges for sure, and also the differentiating factor. In terms of identity, I think this is more of the umbrella term, where it's actually more, I would say, about behavior than characteristics. So tell me what you do, and I tell you who you are. Don't tell me where you're from or what your passport is, right? My take.
I think I agree with all of that. I think identity is a superset of the other two, and then I don't know how to place the other two, but I want to touch on identity real quick, and I think that when should I hold this further away? Is it too loud? Okay. um, when people hear like the word identity, their minds oftentimes go to like the identities of people, and they think of use cases like KYC, AML, Sybil resistance, under collateralized lending, things like that. But everything has an identity. Like this little coffee cup has an identity. Like everything in the world has like an identity. Not necessarily everything has an identifier or a digital identifier. But what I'd like to do is give everything a unique, globally persistent digital identifier so that we can reference those things on the web. So think of the concept Ethereum or the concept Polygon. Like those, how do we, what is the unique identifier that we use to reference those? Like those things have identities. And what is the unique identifier that we use to reference those things on the web? Let's say I want to make a verifiable claim about Polygon itself. What is the UID I use to reference Polygon? Is it the Wikipedia page? Is it the Twitter profile? Is it something? I don't know yet. And so we have to give all of these things DIDs so then we can start attaching this data and this metadata to those unique identifiers. And so like in my mind, that's kind of like what identity is like this way larger superset of all of this. And I delineate, this is just something I recently started doing, but I think we have to start using more words to describe these things. And I'm sorry for going down this rabbit hole, but I think it's important. I think we should delineate identity from reputation. And I think identity is maybe the true form of the thing. And then reputation is based on the actions that the thing takes in the external world. And so our identity systems are a crude attempt to represent what the true form of the thing is. And then reputation is based on, okay, this agent is taking actions in the system. Based on those actions, what is its reputation? Like the thing's identity could be bad or it could be evil. Like deep down, they could have like really bad thoughts, but externally, they could perform only good actions. And so their reputation might be really, really good, even though the identity of the thing is really bad. And so that was a little bit of a rabbit hole, so I'll pass the mic.
Down to the list.
I just will keep it simple, right? In my view, I'm fully agree with you, Vinit. So identity could be everything, not only people, but objects, right? And the Internet of Things will help us to get there. A different story is how we are going to give life to that identity of an object, right? Assigning the identifier, the attributes, and so on. That's one like big concept, identity. A different one is KYC, but to me, KYC is a process, right? KYC comes from mainly the regulatory angle, right? For banking mainly, where you need to know your client, right? And then usually we attach that KYC to individuals with whom you interact with. And then you expect to have an identity attached to that individual, right? So to me, one thing is the concept of identity, the other is a process. And that process somehow can help you to get to this Sybil resistance, because if a person, an individual goes through a KYC, then you can somehow applying maybe additional logic to it, get to decide, okay, that individual is interacting with me in a Sybil resistant manner. That's it, more or less. I'm trying to keep it very simple and simplify and make it short, but to me, they are completely different aspects, right? All around the same.
Maybe the last question before we could ask probably the audience to come in. When would you say that Sybil resistance has been solved, like, once and for all? We've solved it. Sybil, you guys.
I believe that's gonna be difficult, right? So I doubt any project will be able to say with 100% certainty that this solution is providing or resolving the Sybil attack challenge, right? You can say you will solve it up to I don't know, 95% degree of insurance, but it depends very much also on the processes the individual is accepting to go through, right? So we know systems, and there's a very controversial solution already in the market that I would say the projects I talk to that really want to have a Sybil resistant solution, they say, I accept to know that I'm interacting with a human, and I would accept that the human doesn't have more than, I don't know, 5 accounts, different accounts interacting with me, right? They are defining the level of acceptance of the number of different accounts the same individual could have to interact with the application. So to me, we say one human, one account, so to say one human, one vote. But I think the 1-1, it's a high challenge. Probably we need to apply the rule 80-20, right? If we get to the 80% of insurance or assurance about it, then we don't need to run the pain of the remaining 20%, which is super difficult to achieve.
I feel like there's going to be different acceptance criteria for success for different sensitivity use cases. And then I think at some point we'll quote unquote solve it, but it'll take a while. And in the meantime, we'll arrive at these like asymptotically probabilistic certainties that a thing is like unique, and where you want to exist on that curve depends on probably the sensitivity of your use case. And so like, let's say it's low sensitivity. Maybe you're like down here on the curve and you just need like a couple data points. So you take Gitcoin passport and you take some activity from on-chain and you take some other, I don't know what you want to say. It's just like you have this like a la carte menu of things you can choose from to get your Sybil resistance, and you just choose a couple of them. And then let's say you're doing a voting thing for the US government, then maybe you're way higher on the curve and you need a lot of really strong data points to do your Sybil resistance. So I think it's just a curve. Every platform should choose probably the minimum viable Sybil resistance necessary for their use case, and then one day we'll eventually solve it for real. And I don't know what that's going to look like, but we'll figure it out at some point.
Super interesting. Also, I think on the panel itself, you already see the different approaches that we have, right? Like very different answers. I'm trying to be very specific, so and thus probably wrong. I think there are two steps. First is I see identity a little bit like cross-chain interoperability. So we've been investing a whole lot into bridges to get liquidity flowing from Ethereum to Polygon, from Polygon to other places. But we haven't invested at all in the user bridges between those ecosystems, and not even in the ecosystems, but between dApps. So you're onboarded to one dApp and you just stay there, and then you have to rebuild it for another dApp. So I think this needs to be solved first. Once we have done that, we need to go deeper. And with deeper, I mean probably the curve example, where we need to solve it on the on-chain native applications, where it's good enough so people just use it. But then we also want to go into the real world. And I mean, KYC is basically a clumsy approach of governments to do Sybil resistance. They just want to keep you accountable for your actions, which I think in general is not a bad thing. Like, if we just give ourselves rules and we say, well, you shouldn't do something really bad, and if you do, then we want to hold you accountable, I think that's okay, because you shouldn't get away with like really bad shit. And so, is it done right? No. But if we want to actually make an impact in the real world, I would say yes, like I do. And so we need to solve that too. And hopefully they'll move a little bit so it makes more sense. And hopefully we move a little bit so that we have actual native rails to solve it. And then we're good forever.
Multiple questions, but I can take one question from the audience maybe. Anyone has a question from the audience? Thanks.
Yeah, so quick question, I guess, referring to like Sybil resistance as well, typically you see like bad actors, and as we've seen like emergence of like LLMs or other AI agents, where does that fit within like the realm of Sybil resistance and accommodating for actors that are potentially beneficial to a larger system?
Maine, I think you showed up late, but we tackled that one.
Sweet.
Anybody else has a question?
Yeah, hey guys. So I wanna just you to elaborate a bit more on like Sybil resistance use case for airdrops. And I just curious if are there any like financial and business incentives for the free projects to not like distribute incentives to bots practically? So I mean, if a particular token has like high enough perceived value, so and like users who run bots and Sybil farms on like industrial level on higher scale, they can like discover this perceived value like with more chances than like usual like low-key users and so on, and do not like sell this token and hold it token and like stake it token and so on. And so like dropping to bots, practically dropping tokens to bots could be like ROI efficiently for projects, because they can like, I believe, more financial savvy and can like discover perceived value of token like with more chances. So I just wanted to like hear more about what are financial incentives of projects to like not to distribute rewards to bots and like more, I would say, advanced users who run those farms.
Sure. And also, Matt's my friend over there, so I didn't mean to be rude, but I think it comes down to the systems are just kind of broken right now, and what you see is something I alluded to before, but just like disproportionate amounts of rewards being distributed for like small amounts of activity. And so it's like, oh, I can spend $3, perform these 25 actions to complete these quests, and then get a $50,000 airdrop. That's the problem. Is like it's just very disproportionate. And of course you kind of want equal opportunity, and you want everyone to be able to participate, and you want to, I don't know, allow people to have sufficient power in your system regardless of their maybe economic means. But I just think that in the immediate term, where I think there's two solutions. One is just Sybil resistance generally, and like adding more Sybil resistant data points to the picture to be able to understand like where on the curve this person exists in terms of Sybil resistance. And then two, I think it just comes down to making the rewards distributed more proportionate to the amount of value that these agents are adding to the system. So even if it's not economic value that they're adding to the system, like they have to add some tangible value that is way more proportionate to the amount of value they're extracting. So like, is this bot providing $50,000 worth of value to the system? If not, maybe don't give them a $50,000 airdrop. And so I just think we have to like, it's weird that that's happening. We just have to balance it out. And then that plus better Sybil resistance maybe gets us to like an okay spot.
So it's as you were saying, right? To me, it's about a return on investment, right? If I invest something, and that's the reward I give, I want to get to have a return, a value obtained from that. So we are encountering projects that are willing to bring more gamers into the Web3 space, right? For that, they are trying to provide some rewards. But in there, you find a lot of people that is just hunting the reward, but later on they will just not play at all. So that's what they really want to avoid. That's it. It's as simple as that.
Thank you so much, panelists. Thank you so much. I think a lot of insights here. Maybe you can have a round of applause for